authentication market reached over $4 billion USD in 2023, with significant contributions from various regions, including Europe and North America, accounting for half of the total amount, and both with the highest estimated growth rate. With that little anecdote, hello and welcome to the very first Authentic Appetite podcast. I'm Olivia Rossman and Prof, and I'll be one of your hosts today.
I'm Saskia van Ruth. I'm a professor of food supply chain integrity in University College Dublin, and I'm Olivia's co-host for this episode. Olivia, you just hit us with a significant number that makes you think. With these growing costs and number of lab tests hitting food businesses, regulators, while laboratories are making more money than ever, it brings us to today's core question. Can we trust our laboratories? Can we trust our labs?
And this is EFF-CoP's first Authentic Appetites podcast. For listeners who don't know, EFF-CoP stands for the European Food Fraud Community of Practice, which is an innovative initiative aimed at transforming the battle against food fraud and increasing transparency throughout food supply chains. We unite a wide range of stakeholders, including researchers, regulators, industry leaders, and representatives. This podcast will hopefully support learning, facilitate new membership, and inspire cooperation.
If you have thoughts on the trusting of food fraud or food authentication laboratories or other food fraud topics, we encourage you to join EFF-CoP by the website in the podcast description. You can become a member by following us on LinkedIn or an ambassador of this vibrant community, and that will allow you to gain access to valuable resources in the EFF-CoP.
Yes, exactly. And now we have some special guests with us. Can you each introduce yourselves? Maybe you will have Eric start us off.
Yes, hello. My name is Eric Jamin. I'm the director of the Authenticity Competence Center at Eurofins Laboratories, based in France and working worldwide. I've been in this business since more than 30 years now. I was born in authenticity and still happy to be active in this field, which is always very interesting and always evolving.
Hello, everyone. I'm Filippo Grassi. I'm project manager at INSME, the International Network for SMEs. In the last couple of years, I've been involved in several projects related to food fraud preventions, authenticity. So food kind became one of my most interesting and focused works. So I'm during the part of the SMEs and how they can implement food safety measures and initiatives.
Great, thank you very much. To get the discussion rolling, we thought it would be a fun way to start talking about the most surprising food fraud incidents you have encountered, particularly those related to our topic of laboratory trust. So I was wondering, Eric, could you share some ideas about the most surprising food fraud incidents you have come across in your long journey in food authentication?
Yes, well, I came across different types of fraud, and I have to say there is surprise every day about the fact that people are cheating to earn money, and so there's not any special highlight, but it's really the fact that it's so widespread and concerns all products.
Yeah, definitely. Filippo, do you have anything to share?
Oh, yes, some time ago, I came across the global honey laundering scandal that caught really my attention, especially on how sophisticated this crime and this action was actually to bypass not just tariff and regulations, obscure origins and everything, but also to be able to guarantee, to assure the quality and to pass the test. It makes me think about how the testing and in general technologies need to adapt also to the new crimes, to the new attempts. to counterfact or adulterated food. Or more recently, the case of the Vietnam animal oil scandal as well. It's keeping rolling. It's another reminder how food is always and constantly undermined by external factors, internal factors, and fraudsters.
Yeah, thank you so much. And so let's dive into some more in-depth questions that we've semi-prepared for you. Let's circle back to where the episode started, which is money, which is, what the world kind of operates around, what the fraudsters are really out for. And food fraud can be identified in so many different stages, such as safety, nutrition, quality, or specifically food fraud markers. All of these can contribute to what we call a, quote, fingerprint. Saskia, could you maybe briefly explain what kind of fingerprinting is as a method for food fraud identification?
The classical approach to food authentication is to measure one analyte, for instance, to measure one dye or to measure the protein content of milk. In fingerprint analysis, that was developed more recently. The single analyte analysis are with us for over 150 years, but the multiple analyte analysis developed over the past 2 decades primarily. And measuring these multiple analytes is a sort of pattern analysis, comparing authentic products versus others, for instance, organic products versus conventional production or real saffron versus others. So it's a bit more complex type of analysis.
Yeah, thank you so much for that excellent overview of fingerprinting. And it really kind of highlights how even though food fraud has been a problem for as long as a really long time, it's become so much more complex, and the tests to kind of prevent it or find the fraud have become so much more complex as well. So, Eric, given this rapid evolution in testing, how are companies regulated to take specific tests for food fraud? Or more practically, how do they know which or how many tests they need to run? And looking ahead, do you predict that we'll see more fingerprinting type tests occurring in the future as the fraud advances?
So yes, the spend is large and is getting larger if we consider all this. But in my experience, the looking for authenticity is still a very low segment of the analytical work, and much too low in some sectors. Some industries are testing at a high intensity, and some others are just doing nothing, digging their head in the sand. So it's really very heterogeneous situation. Now, to come back on your question about non-targeted analysis, I think this is indeed a way to improve the coverage, because with broad covering tests, we can explore a large number of samples for a relatively moderate cost, and then focus the testing on the one which come as suspect with this screening.
Yeah, great.
Could I interfere? Which sectors test a lot and which do nothing, basically?
I don't want to point people, sectors directly. At least I can tell the good guys, the exemplary sectors. I would mention the fruit juice industry, which is testing since decades on authenticity and has established a code of practice defining authenticity criteria, which is even more used than the regulation itself. Also, honey is often very mentioned as a high-risk metrics, but it's also because it's highly tested. There are a lot of methods, and the honey industry in general is always very interested in testing for authenticity.
Yeah, great.
I'm not saying that all other industries are bad. Huh?
No, of course.
I just don't have time.
Yeah. Yeah, fair enough. And then I'll turn it over to you, Filippo, specifically for SMEs, that maybe don't have labs in their facilities and rely on external testing. How do these costs add up for small businesses, and have these costs increased in recent years?
Concerning SMEs, we are considering in general SME spends up to 100 euros for a simple test, up to more than 1,000 for more advanced tests per sample. SMEs pay the price, a higher price, because they do not possess the technical teams, dedicated legal teams, etc., to better prevent and to understand what kind of test is needed, when it is needed, and for what. Recently, I've seen different trends for SMEs in trying to better equip themselves with personnel, qualified personnel. So they try to gather more information to open up departments departments to figures that are able to make them understand the test nature. I'm also seeing the adoption of technological solutions to better implement the testing and to save some money, especially new technologies such as data-driven decision making, AI-driven decision making, is helping them to understand, to implement more targeted testing, more risk-based testing, so they can understand in which part of the supply chain is more obscure or can happen, is more likely to happen an adulteration or an adulteration of food, or they can use historical data as well to understand and to compare data to understand in which point of the supply chain or in the past has happened an adulteration or a counterfeit of food.
Great. Thank you so much for that answer. If, a business or a lab were to say find food fraud, maybe it's nice to kind of explain what are the responsibilities of the lab, of the business, and where does it go from there? What are the repercussions of finding it on a business level or a laboratory as well? Does anyone want to grab that question?
Yes, maybe I can start. So as a private and purely service laboratory, our role is to give reliable results to our clients, and then it's the responsibility of the client to take actions if there are some deviations. This is very different from control laboratory, which would include some actions after the analysis. But usually it's also these actions are linked to other services and not done by the laboratory itself.
So
Yes.
you're saying that if you kind of see something that's, fishy or weird, you get a bad result, or
Yeah.
you see something like that, you don't have to do anything, but do you ever know if the businesses actually take action to change anything or not really?
In some cases, we can be involved and have further questions, so we can bring some expertise. But in most of the case, I would say it's not part of our job to take actions. And the fact that, in fact, we are not involved in that also makes it more easy for the industry to use us as a kind of neutral party, because we are totally out of the legal actions which may be taken afterwards.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. Thanks. Do you have anything to add, Filippo?
Basically agree. It's up to the company to implement measures and initiative to block, for example, block the product if it's tested or if it's fishy or weird. So the higher price always is paid by the company before coming back to the seller or the distributor who previously distributed the food or the product. And that's why in this case it's very important to make prevention, to work on prevention, because the cost of, for example, recalling a product, blocking a shipment, it's very high. And having in mind, having clear the where is the where the fraud can possibly happen, and how to counteract it, prevent it, it's the most important investment a company can do, also in terms of responsibility.
Thanks very much, Filippo. Then I would like to continue with Eric. There are quite some distinguished high-quality labs across Europe, of course. But during the 20 years I've been working on food authenticity, I have also some results of some labs that show some lower quality work in terms of validation, of understanding of how methods are influenced by all kinds of factors. And we have also seen, of course, some practices that were close to illegal or even crossed that line. So what is your opinion on this and what could be done about it?
Well, I think the main guarantee is brought by accreditation, because then you have a very strict quality system in place within the labs. And probably in the future, accreditation should accommodate more with the specificities of authenticity testing, and maybe invest into accreditation of databases, which is a very key element. So that could be an improvement. Well, I would say there is a community of reputable labs which works together in collaborative projects to improve the methods, improve the state of the art. And this is really the way forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah, I think, sometimes some of these labs, and I don't think it's, in most cases intentional, but it's a sort of more the lack of quality, that it's perhaps not even the execution of the methods, but more the fitness for purpose in some cases, and drawing conclusions from the results. And of course, as someone is accused of food fraud, you have to be absolutely sure. That's a bit different from the food safety issue, where you would be at the other side of the line to make sure that people are not hurt. Filippo, what do you think in view of the smaller businesses? Are they sometimes being taken advantage of, or because they have limited resources or knowledge of the testing?
Yes, that's absolutely. As I was saying before, not having the competencies and expertise often, not often, but usually, it's a pity for SMEs, which needed to rely on external labs. They usually don't have in-house labs or solutions, and they pay a higher price rather than large companies in terms of contracts and activities. Depending on labs, on external labs, recommendation also sometimes can lead to over testing or broad testing that are not aligned with the real target or risks. So I really would like to stress the fact that SMEs, in general, companies should stress the fact to prevent, to equip themselves with the necessary know-how and expertise, and to make prevention.
Yeah, I definitely see how that could be a problem, especially for those smaller companies. Eric, do you have any additional thoughts on, are there any guidelines or kind of resources to help, like maybe smaller businesses that maybe don't know which tests to put in place or which ones they actually need? And do you think that, and I would say, how kind of cost-driven do you think labs can be when they have new kind of tests, if that question makes sense?
Yes, well, I think it's a good thing to challenge the offer from the different labs, and to push them to have also a cost-efficient approach. But in the end, you can't know the truth without spending a bit of money.
That's true. Yeah, thank you. We have one final question before we wrap it up. Um, Given our discussion about trusting laboratories that are outside of food companies, how do you think this topic applies to companies that have their own in-house labs? You know, how Eric kind of was talking about this earlier. Do you think that we should trust these labs even less for food fraud since there's less, external review compared to those sending samples and getting the results back?
Or are they more trustworthy?
Yeah, or are they more?
Because of the intrinsic interests. Yeah.
Well, I think internal labs can be very efficient because they allow for more regular and systematic testing. But in the end, to guarantee full independence, it's also necessary to have totally independent labs. So a combination of both is definitely the best way.
Filippo, what's your opinion?
Yes, I totally agree. It's a kind of system of check and balances. Having our own in labs testing will be better to perform more tests more frequently, etc. But to guarantee the independence and the overall quality, I think it's also we needs external labs.
And then maybe a last word. The field of authenticity testing really requires a high level of expertise and analytical technologies. So, of course, it's not possible to have this in every factory around the world. And some methods will need to be centralized in external laboratories, I think.
Yeah, I fully agree. So, well, we could discuss for another hour probably, but thank you so much for the interesting discussion, everyone. And the conversation does not need to stop here. We encourage all the listeners and members to continue the conversation in the F-Hub. Please register if you are interested or add some comments on our LinkedIn page.
Yeah, and if this topic was interesting to anyone listening, please become a member of EFF-CoP, which is EFF-CoP, which you can find online with the link in the description.
Yeah, before we go, we want to thank Eric Jamin from Eurofins and Filippo Grassi from INSME for joining us today and adding so much input to our conversation. We hope you had a good time on this podcast. And before we let you go off the hook, we were wondering if you have any recommendations for the next experts to come on the podcast or any ideas for future Authentic Appetite episodes. Who would like to start first? Eric or Filippo?
Oh, thank you very much. It's been a pleasure to be here. Very interesting conversation. I think a great idea could be to focus on digital traceability, to invite some experts regarding blockchain and how new technologies can be applied in the food authenticity and food safety and prevention. Since times are changing, new technologies are raising up, and there are thousand possible ways to apply them to this sector.
Thank you. And Eric?
Thank you for the invitation. I also had fun during this conversation. I hope you will be convinced that laboratories are not only profit makers, but rather a service that is necessary for the food industry. And as a suggestion for future podcast, I would suggest to invite food companies to testify about their experiences, their success stories, and maybe difficulties they are still facing about this topic.
Yeah, thank you so much for those suggestions, you two, and we've really had a great time with you both here on the podcast, especially as our first one. So thank you so much. And we'll definitely see what we can do next. Yeah, remember to become EFF-CoP members, discuss food fraud with your colleagues, friends, family, community, and join us for our next podcast, which will be out soon. Who knows? Perfect. Amazing. Well, thank you everyone for
Thank you very much.
joining. Yeah, I hope you had a good time. Bye.
Thanks.
Ciao, alla prossima!
Au revoir.